Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Haverfield with HaveTravel-Memories Vacations. The HaveTravel-Memories team is here tonight, joined by Stephen Franco, who's going to be our group leader on the Holy Land Classic Tour, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. We have Phil Schwartz from Holiday Cruise and Tours. It's also here with us tonight and will be joining us on the discussion. And our special guest is Amy Herf, who went to Israel this past spring as a guest with ETS Travel doing the Holy Land Classic Tour. And she has seen this 10-day tour that we are going to be promoting and putting on again next year for anyone who would like to join us and experience a 10-day Holy Land Classic Tour in Israel. So what we'd like to do is get started. We have, as you can see, a PowerPoint presentation. And so we will turn some time over to Amy, who will begin our discussion, and we'll begin talking about experiences of those in this room that have been to Israel, and primarily Amy's experience with her husband and the things that they got to see and enjoy, and the experiences they had with ETS, who was the company that took care of them while they were there. And without any further ado, we'll turn it over to Amy Herf.
Thank you. Yay. My little granddaughter does that all the time. Thank you, Jason. And I am excited to just, you might have to reel me in a little bit. I'm excited to share everything that I actually have since planted 3 trees there, and we want to go back again. Anyway, so I have what do you call that picture? You know, the world picture of now my favorite place, which is Israel. And we had a wonderful time. The map, I just kind of wanted to explain that we started out at the top and kind of worked our way down. And it was good for me to try to figure out where we were. So we started out up in Capernaum and the Mount of Beatitudes and all of the other locations by the Sea of Galilee. So those are 4 pictures that I took there. Do you guys remember? Have you been to the Mount of Beatitudes?
It's been a long time.
Yes, I remember.
What is the mountain called? I don't remember.
I remember going there, and we went out back, and we just had a really peaceful time. It was just so nice and quiet. And we went out back and we read from the scripture over there and had a great time.
I also had, I love nature. So I did embed, I went over when they were talking, and this is a little bird there that was singing, and I kept hearing it. So I wanted to share that with you.
It's interesting to note that your trip is at the same time our 2023 trip will be.
The same itinerary.
Oh,
The weather
wonderful.
and
The weather was incredible. So I will say our trip started literally when we got on the airplane, because my husband was put next to a surgeon who was in Tel Aviv. And so they got to talk medicine, and I was sitting next to a Hasidic Jew, and I'm always fascinated with all the different, so he actually told me that there's like 20,000 Americans that live in Tel Aviv, because he was born and raised in New York, but his wife and children, and I thought that was really cool, which I didn't even know. Then we went to, we started off at that mount, and then we went to Capernaum, the Sea of Galilee, the Church of Fish and Loaves, and then Magdala, which was the home of Mary Magdalene. So this is just Capernaum. Some of the fascinating pictures. The bottom right is actually from like 4,000 years before the time of Christ. So it was like 6,000 years, something like that. Anyway, they continually excavate and find, they have what is it called? The antiquities.
Antiquities, yeah.
It's like a branch of government that oversees. So anytime you're doing any kind of building, if you run into something, they come out and check it. So they find stuff all the
And they
time.
just keep digging, and they keep finding layers.
More and more, all the way to the bedrock, which is really cool.
Back as you go, Israel was a crossroads of the world, as far as the trade routes and all of that. So it's just so much history the whole way back.
That's what we loved. And in the bottom right corner is our awesome tour guide, Munzer. He was an archaeologist and a historian and was very, very knowledgeable about everything. So the top 3 pictures is all on the Sea of Galilee. We actually went out on the boat. You can see my husband's biggest smile on the bottom there.
I hardly recognized him.
Uh-huh.
I've never seen him smile that.
Yeah, we had a really good time. And then what's fascinating is sometimes your Google will not tell you where you are. It'll just say a certain district. But that was at the Sea of Galilee. And then, of course, I had to hear some water. So I went by and made a little recording so I could share it with my family. And it may or may not. Oh, there it is. It was a lot of fun. But we'll move on to the next area. This was, if I'm not mistaken, is this the Church of
Loaves and fishes.
Loaves and Fishes? So again, another edifice was built on top of the structure. So you can see on the inside of the church and then the outside. This is where my husband really, there were people having church services outside. He really, really enjoyed this. It was just so peaceful and emotional. And some of the stuff, I can't even remember the stories that were told, but I can still feel it. Okay, there was a Catholic church in Magdala, but it's Migdal Synagogue is what they have it in different English or different spellings online, but this church started to excavate and then they found an old synagogue. And this was the hometown of Mary Magdalene. So you can actually see the mosaic and how incredible that was. All of the we have nothing on them in as far as construction and engineering. Okay, how do you say that again? Caesarea. That's where we went to Herod the Great's palace on the water. I took a you can see there.
Use your pointer.
Sorry. Oh yeah, I forget. I took a screenshot where we were standing out by right here. It may or may not let me just go back a little bit. I apologize if okay, here we go. So right here, they had just recently excavated a swimming pool, which was in the lower palace, right on the water. So it would be just like if you go to a beautiful resort that has a pool that's right outside by the ocean. Mhm. Is that why they call them infinity
Yeah.
pools? So you can actually see some of the original flooring and then they kind of rebuilt it here where you could see it. I should have taken a better picture of the description, but I didn't know I was going to be sharing it with so many. So then here on the top 2 pictures on the right is the aqueduct, the engineering of the people back then. When it rained, the water came down off the mountain and basically provided water for his entire palace. And then the church here, which is they call it the Church of the First Miracle in Canaan. Yet again, they built a church on top of the original church, which is where it is noted to Christ changed the water to wine for a wedding. Then we went to Masada, which I was actually planning on skipping Masada because I was already mad at King Herod anyway. Going, you know, he was a poor man. But oh my gosh, this was incredible. We have nothing on their engineering is the only way I can say it. That's a model, but of course, when you see, for example, right here, this dark line represents the original is below, and they sort of built up to kind of give you an idea of how tall the walls were. But the fresco paintings and all of that is all original. This right here is actually there was like a heating element outside, and this is a spa. Like this is under the flooring. All this hot water is underneath, and then you can see the floor. So they had spas, and I mean, they lived really.
I think it's worth pointing out the significance of Masada too, because when you go to
Yeah.
these sites, it's not just what you see. So understanding for Jews,
Mhm.
Masada is it's very relative because in modern day Israel
Mhm.
and historically, this is where the Jews, almost like when you've had
Now, the Alamo.
well, not down, but you had them at the top of the mountain,
Mhm.
basically, I was thinking about the terrorists a few years ago and Syria like that, but I'm saying you at the top of the mountain. And you had the Romans firing upon them.
Yes,
And
yeah.
they basically, instead of being taken by, they fought till their death. They weren't gonna be taken by the Romans, so they fought to their death at the top of the mountain. They
But
were
it
killed.
took them a very long time.
Right.
It did,
So-
it did.
so
They
the-
were,
But the point of it historically is that, so today, at least when I was there 30 years ago, when I studied there, the Israeli, when they do their basic training, they finish running up Masada. I don't know if you walked up
Yes.
Masada or you took
yeah,
the.
we took but we did
Right.
see where
People
they,
walked up.
Could I go?
So the
On
troops,
that ramp.
so the troops, when they finish their basic training, they end it with running up Masada.
oh,
And
wow.
the families are there to greet them, and they chant in Hebrew. I don't know how to say it anymore, but it's never again, never again,
Yeah.
never again. So if you're a Jew that's lived in the diaspora for thousands of years, and you look at Israel today, and you see the world, and how many people and places around this world still are anti-Israeli or whatever. it
Well,
is.
yeah, and
Never again, never again, never again. That's the historical.
and you can feel that emotion. You can feel that emotion from so many. I'm gonna get all teary-eyed when we went to the Western Wall. That's when we decided to buy trees for my husband's father, you know.
Yeah.
Because he was a Jew who came to Alabama in the 60s, so that was a lot harder for him. This is Jericho. And you can see, do you see the corners right here? And actually our tour guide was also an archaeologist, and he was friends with a woman who wrote a book. She was the spouse of, do you recognize or remember any story about that? She was the spouse of an archaeologist, and she was trying to finish his dream of finding Jericho. And anyway, the short version is it was found, and they went all the way to the bedrock. They can find the pillars like of the city, but they can find no wall. All the way to the bedrock, they can't find any wall because, you know, the walls came down. So it was like really a neat experience. Also, this was Palestinian territory. And it was kind of weird to say, we're gonna go to Palestine and have lunch today, but they were very, you know, friendly, and we were with a small group. So of course they're happy that people are there to eat. There's my husband right there with his cute little face. And, you know, it was just a lot of fun. So I was with some girls from Queens, New York. And they were having a good time. But of course, they all treat you very well. And they're,
What'd you think of the food you had there?
so I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, okay.
But my husband loved it all.
We got very good vegetables.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I just, well, I had a lot of pita bread with a lot of vegetables, and it was fine. So, but I can't really speak to the meat. Then up here is the Dead Sea. And I didn't float. Me and my husband decided it was too cold, and we're from Florida, so we just let them. It was too cold, like the wind, you know. And then this was taken in the Judean hills, as traditionally known as the place where Elizabeth took John the Baptist to hide. And then, of course, the River Jordan. Now, this is a really beautiful area.
That's so
And
beautiful.
those are, this woman was a minister, and it was her 18th trip.
Wow.
And so that was kind of neat. So then this is the route from Nazareth to Jerusalem. And so those who traveled between those places, it's about 90 miles, including Christ. If if he would have traveled there, that, I mean, it was beautiful. There were birds chirping. It's almost like when we step onto, in my faith, we have temples. So when we go to temples and you hear birds chirping and it's like all beautiful, that's how it felt there. That was a really, really nice place. It was called Wadi something, but I cannot remember. This is the top of Mount Moriah and the Dome of the Rock, which they do not allow non-Muslims to go in anymore. But some of my friends who have studied abroad were allowed to go in.
But the tour takes you up there right to the building?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
and it's interesting because you see where the line is, where the Palestinians and where the, you know, it's very interesting. It's fascinating because it's been going
That-
on
that
for so
piece of
long.
dirt is the most sought after piece of dirt on the face of the earth.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes, and they talk about the different years, like in 1965, this is when they, you know, assumed this portion, and there are still some areas like the green zone or the line where
That's the spot where Abraham
took his son.
took his son Isaac to be.
Yes,
Abraham's buried below the whale and somewhere along the way.
and we went there
Yeah.
to that, and but it was we were there during holy times, but we went and it was pretty neat. And that's I hope it doesn't, is it gonna, oh, I'm so sorry. Sometimes it'll do that, but anyway, I was gonna point out my little hubby right there coming from the men's side.
Men's side, yeah.
Mhm. Okay, after that, let's see, where did we go? There were so many places. We went to, okay, so here is Jerusalem. For those who remember the Pool of Bethesda, this is that. And they have little placards. Jesus healed a sick man. And then, of course, you can see part of the wall. And I just picked out some of my favorite pictures.
Anyone watching the show The Chosen saw a whole episode about the
Yeah.
pool. with the-
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Spent a lot of time on that in the show.
And I was confusing it with a different pool. So I've actually learned
Yeah.
this is our group right here. Nice small size. And I'm telling you, we just loved, I can't tell you how much we loved our tour guide. And we say we want him when we go back, but I heard they're all great. Oh, thank you for doing that. I didn't know how to do that.
No, I was just wondering, so I'm trying to log in. What were you looking for?
Nothing.
Okay,
Everything's
no,
fine.
you're good.
So
He lives there.
he lives there. He's been there for like 5 centuries or something, his family. And he was raised, he was like, when I was 18 months old, I used to come all the way down here from the Christian Quarter and play because it was so safe. And but his mother passed and they just
So that's the tour guide you were so happy with?
yes.
Oh.
Yeah, but they were all, they were all just as good, I'm sure. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. And I believe it's this tree right here is 4,000 years old. This is the other side of it. And then of course,
That's it too.
well, there's just several trees, but of course, then there's a huge rock, which is traditionally known as the place where Jesus prayed. And they built a church over it. And I have a hard time taking pictures inside churches. So I kind of forgot and didn't take a picture of it, but you can look it up. It's the whole not taking a picture of sacred thing, Okay, so this is the traditional location of the house of Caiaphas. Did I say that right? Caiaphas, thank you. The high priest who was very wealthy, and that was the water cistern. This is looking at it from being inside. There is a staircase, but obviously it was to hold water. It was empty. And that is where they say that Christ was dropped from the top here and held the night when he was, they had a night court and he was told that he was guilty. well, they've built a church around that, so that's why there's marble.
When they did
Here.
Christ, what they do?
They kept him in that house of the high priest the night before they took him to Pontius Pilate.
You really
So-
get that feeling when you go in.
Well,
it's, you know,
for any prisoner in any circumstance to be in this bedrock. And to imagine that there's no windows, because they've obviously made windows and a staircase that you go down. So that was, for any prisoner, any person who's held captive, it was pretty,
but
emotional.
One of our trips over there, we took the group down there. And then we broke out into singing Amazing Grace.
mhm,
And the
mhm,
acoustics.
mhm.
Just.
Yeah.
It just overwhelmed you.
Wow.
And then when you come out, there is, because of course Peter followed them. I don't know why that keeps happening. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make you guys sick. Peter came, and followed and, was ignorant to what was going on at the time, but then he realized, and you see there's a rooster at the top, and there are 3 people who questioned him, and he denied knowing. And I don't remember the name of that church. I can't remember, but it's, yeah. So here is traditionally where prisoners were taken. And this is a tree with the thistles, the very large thorns that are really, they're like razor sharp actually, but this is, this right here was, they covered it because it has, it's a game they played, with all the prisoners. They made him a king for the day before they were executed, and it's carved in to the Romans. It was like carved into the floor, so they have something over the top of it to keep it from being walked on or whatever. But this was the last place before the crucifixion. And then I only took 2 pictures of the Via della Rosa, or however you say it, to be honest, because I was sobbing and it was a snot fest, and I just really didn't even think about it. But it was, you walk through the same pathway where Christ was traditionally
Carry the
brought.
cross.
And then one thing I did learn, which was interesting, Jewish, not law, I don't know what they said. Tradition was that, there's the gate, and then outside the gate is where they would hang the people who did bad things at the city. So when you get there and you see, okay, this guy was a thief and this guy was whatever, don't come in our city and do this, because it was like a spectacle. So a lot of people think that this happened on top of a mountain, a green hill far away, but it was, Golgotha was the place of the skull, and it was just outside the city gates. And so you can see in this was like in the early 1900s, where there's travelers, but now it's a bus station, because it's like a hub of where people travel, because the old city is still in this gate, right? But then Jerusalem is huge, but there's a bus station outside. And you can still see where Golgotha, or what they call the place of the skull.
So you can kind of see it in the rock there.
And you can see it here too. But it's interesting, and very emotional. And I, again, did not take photos of the inside of the tomb just because I didn't, but this is traditionally known as the tomb, because it was definitely a wealthy person's tomb. Because there was like a weeping room and then a separate location for the bodies, whereas oftentimes they're not that big and spacious. Is somebody wanting to come in?
No.
Oh, thank you. So let me think if I did anything else. I might have finished it with this. That's exactly what I did. That's what I finished it with. So I missed, what is the place where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls? Because we went there too, and there were if you are into history, archaeology.
Qumran.
Qumran, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. And I can't even begin to tell you. I ended up having like 7,000 photos. So the 150 you got was like, yeah. This was probably one of the most incredible trips I've been on, and we've been to Paris and Venice and, you know, multiple times.
We did the Mediterranean.
And we've done Mediterranean on a clipper ship, you know, like we've been to a lot of places. And even my husband, he agreed to go because I booked it without telling him. And then I said, the spirit told me to. I just felt like I should do this.
No.
And
Forgiveness is easier than.
No,
permission.
he
That's
really
always
was
been
like-
what I've said.
But he was like, I've actually been thinking I'd like to go. I mean, this whole COVID thing has really, you know, it makes you realize family's more important. And he's been thinking a lot of his roots and his father, and he has lots of extended family.
And ultimately, he was really thrilled with it.
Oh yeah, we had, and he doesn't do tours, just so you know. Because he doesn't want to be with people all the time. He wants to be by himself, but it was an incredible trip. The food was, I gained weight. The food was incredible.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And I didn't even talk about the 2 hotels. So the one hotel was called Caesar. Was it called Caesar? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
there's a Caesar.
Okay, we stayed there.
You started in
Yes,
the
in
north.
Tiberias. Yes. So that's where we stayed for a couple of nights. And it was very, very nice. Very nice. Like I would say 4 or 5 star. It was very,
Yeah,
very nice.
They are, and they're owned by ETS.
Mhm. And then the second hotel was, what was that one called?
Um,
Something tree or
Yeah,
the olive tree.
in Jerusalem.
That was wonderful. We walked from there and did quite a bit.
It's also my understanding that the staff, the concierge at the hotels are actually employees.
They're
of
all
ETS,
employees.
and
Yeah,
they
they're
live
all
there.
employees.
They
Yeah.
live there. Yeah,
And
they're there all the time.
exactly. They were very accommodating, very accommodating. I will say our group was great. But I will say that at first I did notice some people that didn't seem happy in the hotel, and I kept thinking, this is a beautiful hotel. And they wouldn't look up, and they were, you know, looking away and almost had like empty looks on their faces. And then the second day we were told there were 180 something refugees from Ukraine, from the very place where my husband's family is from. And the hotel was putting them up for free, you know, like I'm sure it was just, and we realized, you know, because I would say, I don't know what was wrong with that lady, you know, we realized that we were sharing the hotel with refugees because it was just starting.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And they were all from, they call it the Pale of, it's a place in Ukraine where all of the Jews were forced to live years ago, according to this, it was just an area where they were all Jewish and they were all staying there. And it was really, then when we realized that that's who some of the people were, because they didn't look like travelers, it was just, it made the trip even more memorable because it was very like humanity.
Yeah.
And I realized it was a really good company, you know, it was
good
just,
to do that.
it
What
was,
did you think of the walking? Was it a lot for you and your husband, or was it pretty good?
so it was fine, but we're very active, and my husband is in his mid-70s and he is very active, but there was nothing we couldn't do. I mean, we walked everywhere, going to the Judean hills and stuff. There are a lot of just like any old city, lots of little steps, and you can kind of get,
Cobblestones.
yes,
That kind of thing. The guidelines I get from people for this kind of trip is can you go out and do a mall walk, like a lot of people do, walking around the mall and climb 3 flights of stairs
mhm.
without stopping.
Which I don't even think we did like
You
3
did,
flights.
But
Yeah,
if you can do that,
you're good.
you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one minister that was there. It was like her 18th trip. She was 87. And it was, I think she just skipped one thing, and it might have been Masada.
Yeah.
She skipped
Oh.
Masada, but
So I know that the days are pretty packed. It's a tight itinerary. What did you think about the pacing and how they had the day set up for you?
it was great as long as you follow the rules. You have to remember not like on Sabbath day, don't take the elevator that is it's marked the Shabbat elevator
Mhm.
because we were like on the 18th floor maybe, and it stops at every floor.
Because of the button, you don't.
'Cause they
So
don't have to
that you
push
don't push
buttons.
buttons. Yeah, for those that observe that
Right.
strict, you know.
Right.
Orthodox.
But everything was great. Yeah, everything. It didn't even feel rushed. Nothing felt rushed, but David was
But you
just saying
packed a
this.
lot in.
That's exactly what he said. He goes, it's like they packed so much in, but I would say maybe after lunch, because the lunches were so good, we just stopped eating as much. Because they take you to places and everybody just feeds you and feeds you and feeds you and feeds you. And it's we did not lack of food. But yeah, we did everything and
So the transportation between sites that you visited, air-conditioned buses, they were comfortable,
with iPhone plugins.
iPhone plug-in.
Yeah. And you know what? There was Wi-Fi,
Most of them.
but we all had yeah. Well, I think it did. The Wi-Fi did. They had a Wi-Fi password, but we had an international. We just keep our international service on. And I'm trying to think. They pick you up at the airport, and I get really sick. Oh, nauseous sick.
Line.
No, because no, in buses and things like that.
Motion
But there was motion sickness, but it was not like that in this. It was a really nice tour bus that, when sometimes they're, I don't know, it was nice. They're not rocking all over the place. Yeah.
Could you always hear well?
Yes, because they have whispers, that you get a little earbud thing. And you actually don't hear other people screaming and hollering. Everybody's kind of talking quiet.
Little radio receivers.
Yep. And they meet you at the airport, and I mean, everything was so easy. That's one thing I said to him, you might not like tours, because my husband generally doesn't like that. I'm like, we could do this till we're like in our 90s, because you literally just show up and they shuffle you around.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. How much time did they give you in the old city?
so you could stay in the old city, or you could go to Masada. So for
On that particular day. it was-
One particular day.
one particular day,
So
but
they
then there's
have one
another
free
day.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Actually, spent out of that, I think, 3 days in Jerusalem. 3 or 4,
Correct.
I think.
Yeah, and we walked down
And
to the
so
old
most
city.
of it is sightseeing, but you do have some free time on those other days. in the
Mhm.
city. But then there's one full day
In the city,
that is just a free day in Jerusalem. Or you
Masada.
can opt to go to Masada.
Yeah.
And do that. So-
Yeah. Yeah, so if we ever go back, we are gonna do more in the old city, but you do see every part of the old city.
And sample the food, and the tour guides collect the food so that you get a good
Yes, as a matter of
appreciation
fact,
for the cuisine there.
yes. And I guess it would be depending on who you're with or what type of group, but this particular group, I'm trying to think, I don't remember where we ate. It was probably in the Christian Quarter. I don't know, but he seemed to know everybody in the entire town, our tour guide, so.
Yeah.
And had some
What
very
else?
good falafel on it.
Well, you have to tell me what that was.
Short is better.
Well, yeah,
Fried
yeah.
balls and
Oh,
chickpeas.
everything was good. If it wasn't meat, I ate it,
Very
and it was good. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
good food.
Falafel is former than meat.
David and I did go after hours, and they, I don't know that everybody would feel comfortable doing this, but we did. We went after hours and afterwards, and we would walk to the old city.
Yeah, 'cause you
And
get to the hotel about 5 or 6, and then you have the option to have dinner together at the hotel, and then the rest of the evening is yours.
yes, correct. Yeah. And we walked around and did some stuff.
How much daylight is left by the time we get to the hotel?
It's still daylight. In March, it's still daylight. I don't remember, but we would stay out until after dark. So I just don't remember.
It's a very safe zone.
Oh, yeah, we felt very safe.
So you
Yeah.
could go out into,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do anything dumb, but we walk fast and stay focused, and he wanted to go see a few other places. So it was very safe. As a matter of fact, it's safer than, like, we won't go to New York anymore. I won't go and run a 5K in Central Park anymore. It's very, it's unfortunate, but
Israel's very safe. It's like, you're not gonna wander off the worst neighborhood and,
All of a sudden find
Atlanta,
yourself
I'm
there.
saying, I mean, you just wouldn't do that, so, otherwise it's pretty safe.
But it was funny because I say our trip started while we were on the airplane, because I was sitting next to a man who was an American. He was a Hasidic Jew, but he lived in Tel Aviv. And so he was talking with me, and I was saying, well, my husband's father was Jewish, and telling him about us trying to find where he was buried up in Quebec, and how he left, Ukraine or Russia back then. And just talking with him, and he told me a lot of really interesting things about how it's safer there than in statistics. And
There's very little crime there. I mean, there's not a lot of crime. Your crime
Yeah.
is more like, it's more like, you have like, if you're going into Palestinian territory or something like that, you're not gonna go wander into things like that, or in Gaza or something. You definitely got stuff going on.
correct. And so one thing he did say, as well as our guide, who when we read his bio, it said that he was of Palestinian descent, but he was Christian. He said that pretty much everybody loves the Americans, and that's how we felt. Like, when we went to the Palestinian locations, they all love us. And when we were in the Israeli areas, they all love us. It's really not anything to do with us, if there's any fighting at all.
There's a big difference between Palestinian Israelis and Palestinians who live in the occupied territories, because the Palestinian Israelis are Israeli citizens. And candidly, they have more rights and have a better standard of living than Arabs throughout the entire Middle East.
Yes, yeah, it was, yeah. We felt so safe there. And, of course, like any other different countries, they have machine guns, but you can see that up into South America, and there's a lot of that too. So
Did you, one evening at the hotel in Jerusalem, did you have an optional meeting that you could go to after dinner that had a Palestinian representative and a Israeli representative?
So I don't recall that, but I will say that we were like the first trip
Well,
after the release of, and it was very well done, even though it was sort of like the very first trip. So
Yeah.
I don't recall that.
Well, what they do in that meeting, which is very interesting, is it basically is, I want to say debate, but it isn't really, they're not debating, forget, but they present the different views.
From a
Palestinian,
political standpoint or from a
political,
religious
the
standpoint?
current situation in Israel and West Bank and all this stuff.
That would be it.
And it's very interesting, and then they have a question and answer period where you can ask them, and they're very respectful of each other.
Mhm.
But they are very firm in their view of,
Mhm,
of course, the Palestinians, it's our land originally, it should be us, and all of that. And it gives you the current political state.
Mhm.
That's it, and it's very interesting.
It is interesting for people who are interested in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, it all, regardless of whether you have a chosen faith or not, it's just the history. And I happen to be Christian, but the history of all of us coming from Abraham, that alone is, and you can feel it. Like, I remember when Amber was telling me, you can feel this place is a special place. And I remember I tease my daughter-in-law about, she's going to take care of me, and Ruth and Naomi, that whole story. And we went to the Fields of Boaz. Is it called the Fields of Boaz or whatever? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like all there. It's all there, from when it was
Did
The
you
city
see
of
the well
David.
Abraham, by chance?
Say that again.
The well of Abraham?
So I'm not saying we didn't. I'm just saying it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. And if you're not a scriptorial, like I am not. It's hard.
Probably not, because that's down in the Geb, not go down in the Geb.
I don't
It's
know.
Down in the south.
Yeah, then I know we went to a lot of tombs of a lot of people that I'm like, how have I never heard this name? I'm so embarrassed and I'm looking things up.
Yeah.
It was an incredible trip. I would love to do it again and I would recommend that. The 10-day. I don't know if you guys have longer days. That's a 10-day one. It was perfect.
10 days was
Perfect.
perfect.
It was perfect.
Now, the trip that you went on, we parted from New York, and the air is included from New York.
Correct.
And the next one that we're hosting will be from, where did you say, Jason?
I was hearing their conversation. Say it again.
It's not New York. it's-
Newark, New Jersey.
Well, Charlotte, yeah,
Charlotte.
most of our flights for ETS originate in New York,
Okay,
like yours did.
okay.
Although on the latest brochure that they've given me, it's out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, which is still an American airline hub and
Yeah, and it's
we love that airport because they have
And
a really
the
nice
air is
club there.
included.
air is included. It's $36.48 per person, $300 deposit. And that's a really
Well,
good
when you
price.
consider it's room and board and food and,
You have to get yourself to the departure airport. And you
Yes.
can- But
yeah,
yeah, typically they have you going out of New York, but this brochure they sent me said Charlotte. So
Okay.
we're going with that.
that might even be
There's no more
more,
than
How'd you find the room board and the accommodations? I mean, obviously it's a really good price, so people, that's a really good price to say.
The rooms are all-
It is. I would say at least 4-star. I would say at least 4-star.
And there's only 2 hotels.
Yeah.
So all the traveling you're doing, you're not packing your bags.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
we did laundry. It was great. We were, like washing out t-shirts and stuff like that. Yeah, it was, I felt like the accommodations were great. We wanted first class tickets just because
You
I
can-
never see that far and
You can.
and
that's a
I
good
like
thing.
to work. I like to work. And so I usually sleep for 2 hours and then I get up and I work because I don't know why you're stuck there. You got to do something and I get a lot of work done, but and I always say it's for my husband and his hips and he needs this. So we did opt to fly, to Amsterdam. We flew on Israeli Air to Amsterdam and flew, we came back a little different. But that was just something we did on our own.
And that's a really good point.
And
People
so
that-
I will say, having done that, if anybody wants to do that and their flight is 6 hours later, we were so happy to be with that group. We were like, let's just go to the airport with the group. Well, I mean, there's like so many kids. There were a lot of spring break kids going back to the States and there were so many travelers. And then we got to an area where we couldn't go in until a certain time, you know what I mean? So I would even opt to going later because I think we decided to go at midnight, but our flight wasn't until 6 a.m. Because we're used to hanging out at airports going, we'll go to the club. It's not like that. You
Yeah.
can't, you know what I mean? You can't get past a certain, we were confused. So, but we did say we should have probably taken a different,
But a good point to make is that in addition to the schedule that is included with this price, people do have the opportunity to add on and do extra, stay longer.
yes, we had considered staying longer.
can do
We
that.
did consider, but
And
then
like
we
you
ended
did,
up,
you upgraded your flight. So
Correct.
people don't want the regular seat, they want the
Yes.
business plus.
Yeah.
They want to be able to lie down. You do have the option to pay the extra for that.
and the reason we couldn't come back on that flight was the floodgates were opened and everybody was going because of the, there were a lot of people that don't do vaccines in the New York area who are Jewish that wanted to go home or see family or whatever. So the first class seats were gone there and back. We had upgrades, but so coming back, we just decided to go to Amsterdam and check that out. And so it was all good. It was really good. But really, when you think about that price,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's very.
Well, and does it also include like the entry into all the places? that-
All of
Yeah,
everything,
tickets.
everything, like it covers all of your entry fees.
The only thing that's
Yeah.
additional was the tipping, right? That,
The tipping, and we knew, but I could tell some people did not know, so it's really important to read your information.
The tips are all included for the hotel personnel and so on. So
Correct,
it's
yeah.
just the tips for your.
The tour guide and the driver, and I will say the driver was he was driving, and I didn't even mention that the last day you go to the, it's the Holocaust Museum, but it's a
Yad
specific,
Vashem.
yeah, there was like a, what is it called?
Yad Vashem.
So that was pretty emotional, especially for my husband. That was it was an incredible trip, but it really helps you to understand humanity and never again.
yeah.
To never go down that route again. So it was
Yeah.
an incredible trip. I want to go back.
Well, that's what
I put it, just going
everybody
through these photos, I want to go back. And
says. I've never heard anybody say, yeah, I've been once and I've done that.
Good, they want to go
They
back.
always want to go back.
Mhm. So,
All right, well, Amy, thank you so much for that presentation.
yeah,
That
sorry,
was-
I rambled a
No, that
little,
was
but.
absolutely fantastic.
No, you answered great questions.
We have recorded this, so we'll be putting this on a link and be sharing this whole presentation, so it will be available to anybody. And there will be contact information with the link that can get a hold of us about more information and dates that we're going to be going. Right now, we're shooting for March 2023. That could change, but we want to see what kind of interest we can gather for this Holy Land Classic Tour in 2023. So again, that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience with us.